This is my 97 Honda Magna. I have stripped it down, yanked the motor, disassembled the motor. I also bought a VFR motor, which is underneath those blankets. I can't find anything on YouTube of people doing the VFR swap on their 750 Honda Magna, but we've learned today that the cases are basically the same. Magna has a timing chain on the crank, and the crank is lateral versus the VFR, which is 180 degrees out. So the pistons are the same, the cranks are different. That gives you the different timing and the 20 extra horsepower that we're all looking for. So I took everyone's advice, got a motor, got the wiring harness, got everything stripped down, and what I'm learning is VFR uses these timing cams, and it's not much work, but these 4 points have to be tapped, drilled and tapped to handle the gear set. Oops. And then this spot here and this spot here have to be drilled for this bolt here, which is a part of this. So basically what I'm learning is to get this to work with the Honda Magna, drill and tap these holes. Drill these holes, they're smooth. All the threads are actually inside this piece here. Then from that point, that crank will drop right into our motor. Same with the transmission. You take those two gear sets and then lose the 5-speed, move up to the 6. You do have to change out this guy here and maybe the forks, so I'm going to change it all, use the VFR stuff because it's all basically pull it out, put it back together. I'm changing the journal bearings for the crank. I'm changing these bearings down here, doing rings, getting it honed. And after I get this stuff drilled and tapped on both sides, you just have to make a cover plate to cover up both of the chain tensioners. So, flat piece of metal, gasket, might have to notch it for the bolt head to fit down there. That should be it. You can lose these guys here. You're not using timing chains anymore when you move over to gears. I will be using VFR components, so I'll be using everything you see in that picture, and then the transmission, and then keeping the Magna head so I can keep the covers. Clutches, other components are all the same, and that's really it. And I also got, on top of all this goodness, the VFR box, because I got the VFR carbs, which are 2 millimeters bigger. I got these things cleaned. I took one apart at a time, took my time. The only thing I had to do was flip this up here by the choke. This tube here was on this side. So you just separate it, flip it, put everything back together, and everything lines up. And the only thing you have to do is there's vacuum lines on here for the smog. They come off of each carburetor. And when you look in the manual, you'll see it. Each one of these lines go to a vacuum. Oops. Each one of these lines, little guys, and there's some big ones in there, they just go to the evap system, the canister, the California, the only stuff that this Magna does not have. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm just going to plug them, cross my fingers, and hope it works. I also got the coil. You need the computer because the timing is different, and I got the entire harness. So everyone says that's the bitch. So I'm going to work on assembling the motor, making sure that's good, and then I'll worry about the harness and moving things around on this guy. When I'm done, I'll have 20 extra horsepower, 10 to 12 extra foot-pounds of torque, and I think it'd be a little more fun. Not like that motor was slow or anything. But I won't post any of this until I'm done, so this is only the first day. Got 2 broken down motors. I'm going to put them back together, and start ordering bearings and whatever else I need, bolts, gaskets, stuff like in that fashion. And we'll put this puzzle back together. In the meantime, you get to shine up all your other stuff while you're waiting for parts to come in. Okay, so what I have is the VFR on the left with the camming gears installed, and the Honda Magna top. Now the issue I'm having is this bolt here is fine. There's nothing in the way. You can just drill into this guy, make it a hole, you're fine. This guy though, where it's located, might have some problem here, because you're going to take away almost all the way to the edge of this to drill that hole, plus recess it in. So now the question is if we do this to this guy, what's going to happen? How am I going to get this closed up other than having someone weld it shut? Now, the simple thing that you would think of would be, hey, both these tops are exactly the same. Why don't I just use this on the Magna? Sounds great. Everything's already done. But the crankshaft, it uses different bearings for different cases. And I'm not 100% sure you can just take this crankshaft, throw it in here, and then install it into the other one and make it work without it destroying itself because the bearings aren't correct. Because the crank code's different for this one and this one, so everything is, I'm still not sure. We'll just call this day 2 video, but I got gaskets in already, and I got everything on order to make this case work. Like drilling these guys, no problem. Drilling that, no problem. Drilling these on this side, no problem. That. It's the only thing I'm not sure of. Alright. As you see, I'm assembling the motor. I got my machine work done to accept. We've got that opened up, those drilled. This is the Magna block. Got these guys done too. So that needed to be machined. And then there was a small section on the inside. I'm not 100% sure where it was. It needed to be machined also. Okay, I'm going to try this video again. I ran out of memory. Magna motor assembled. Got the piston rings, camming gears. Got this machined. Got those holes done. He made me a nice little piece. I know I should be more ready for this. To block off the timing chain. So all I gotta do is put some Loctite on that, tap it in, put the screws in, and then go nowhere. I am going to try to use one of these guys, disassemble it, put the gasket back on it, keep the screw on the end, try to block off the other hole. That way the timing chain can be 100% deleted. And I'm at the point now where I'm doing side covers. Got the starter, your 2 sensors instead of 1. The Magna only has 1, VFR has 2. Got everything all nice and assembled. Just got to put a bolt in and put the side cover back on, and then I can work on the water pump and some other stuff on the other side. And I'm following the book. Some wiring tips. I got the front coil out, and then I just used the existing bolts that were on the bracket with the spacers, and basically just ran the bolt through, caught the original location. It sticks out. I don't know if it's going to work, but if it does, I won't say anything else about it. That's the front ones. There's some more info on the wiring. Basically got the entire harness. I went through the drawings, and if you can see this, you can snag it and print it. Basically, you only got to run a few wires. Everything else you just kind of tap, and then you pull them out of the harness. So I stuck like the fuel pump, relay, and then I kept each of the coil wires, even though the black with white goes to each of the coils. And on the Magna, it happens to do the same thing. The black and white go to the coil, and then from that point you can just tap that over to the other side and just run the other color And they're even labeled on the harness, like blues 1. Basically, this little guy here with the yellow wires goes down and catches your 2 things to tell when the coils to go off. That's pretty much it. The only thing you gotta do is this black wire here. It goes to the fuse block, to a 10 amp fuse. So basically, you just gotta tie that into a 10 amp fuse. So if you take 2 little slide connectors with the fuse in between, run it off power coming after the switch. So after you flip this, it lights those up. Then when you push the button, everything's working. And I've only hit one snag, and it's this cam. I don't know if we had it on T1 or T2 or whatever it said to put the cams on this side, and I don't know if we needed to go another 360 or what. But when we were setting these guys in here, they were sitting. This one sat fine. We sat this one in here. It was lifted a little, and while we were tightening it, we happened to take my poor little cam and snap it right off. So I'm not sure if that's a machining issue or we just torqued one side and it wasn't, I don't know. But the caps weren't fully pushing down. It left a gap, and then we tightened it, it cracked it. So I need to buy another one. But the engine's in. And I'm doing wiring, and like I said, I took the Magna manual and my manual, so Magna on the bottom, VFR on the top, and went wire by wire and matched them up with the Magna wires. So there's, like these guys here, you're not using at all. So that's the old guy, which you're not using that anymore. So basically the tack goes to yellow green, same exact wire, don't have to change anything. You will have 2 plugs down here. One will be the VFR plug and one will be the Magna plug, and they'll both be wired in. So if you needed to go backwards and undo everything, hopefully not, and you'd have to blow the whole engine apart and take it back if you wanted to. The only thing I noticed is the VFR motor, or ICM, is a little bigger. It doesn't want to fit in its cradle because of the screw for the battery box. So I might have to throw some zip ties on it or something, but the rubber piece fits. It's just another 1.5 inches longer, and it's not going to sit pretty because, as you see, it's dangling right here pretty close to the swing arm, and it's going to hit. Well, take that back. I'm not bolted up. It should be fine. It just needs to be zip tied in place so it doesn't slide out. And then you just have a few wires to run, besides the fuel pump that you'll have to hook up, which a lot of us don't believe we need it. I bought it just because the VFR had it, but I'm thinking that the VFR had it only because high RPM, on a track, race day, it would actually come into play. But I don't think that I needed a fuel pump either, but I figured it couldn't hurt. It's $19. I already got the plug for it. All I need is a relay to tie into it for the safety. So that's it. This is where I'm at. I was hoping to have all this stuff in a box and done playing with it and at a yard sale somewhere, but still working with it. Okay, wiring. What I did is I used the original Honda harness, grabbed whatever duplicate wires and just stretched them, poked a hole through the wire, wrapped it, taped it. I'm going to have to make sure this doesn't get dirt because these contacts on the end still have power and stuff going to them. So don't need to mess that up at all. I already told you about the ICM. It basically fits there. It is a little taller, so it doesn't quite, the rubber thing doesn't quite grab it as hard as it should. And then from this point, just to go over some of the wire colors of what's going on, is these 2 guys here are the fuel pump. This black wire here just needs to go to a 10 amp fuse working off the on-off switch. This blue one goes to coil 1, which this should be cylinder 1, cylinder 2, cylinder 3, and cylinder 4. So based off that, the rear coil, I was managed to get coil 1 by itself there, and unless you sacrifice this box, then you can put them both there. I'm going to try to save it at this point of time without having to cut all this out. It does hold your reservoir bottle, so it's not like you can't just chop it and make it go away. From that point, this one's going to go to this cylinder, which I got to find a way to mount it. But I'm going to put more stuff together, like finish the heads, put the carbs on, see where the gas lines are, because I still have to run the fuel pump. And the nice part is of keeping the original harness, this guy will plug right into the fuel pump. I'm going to buy the relay, the fuel cutoff relay, and I'm just going to plug it in. And then this green wire needs to go to ground. So that's basically all I got. Even pulling the original harness for the points, it looks like it should be long enough to reach without having to extend any wires. All I basically did was cut the harness up and everything, even the 2 front coils, because the black and white wire is already there, so you don't need that. You can just plug one in and then jumper it to the other side, and you're done with that. You just have to run these 2 wires up there for the front cylinders. I don't know, everyone said it was the hard part, but really, after doing this, it's really not that bad. So that's where I'm at. I'm hoping to have this thing running within 2 weeks at this point. So that's where I'm at.